Well, how obvious was what I just said? If your name's on the sign,
what does the rest of it matter?
Who cares if you're taking who's doing it all?
But
if that's your buzz, Ronald Reagan's one of his favourite sayings. Not that I quote him often, but he said there's no limit to what a man can do if he doesn't mind who gets the credit for it, and that's so much effort goes into getting the credit. So it's a waste of time getting the credit. Just.
Okay, g'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Trademutt's 120 Grit podcast, the podcast for the working class. We've got a big guest on today, high profile guest,
Special guest.
A very special guest. He's the Chairman of Hutchinson Builders, music enthusiast and a big art lover, Mr. Scott Hutchinson. Welcome to the podcast.
I didn't know pinball machines were art.
And pinball wizard that he didn't want to be named.
How good are you at pinball, mate?
I'm fair. My son's very good. He was ranked 7 in Australia, and we went to a tournament in Chicago a few years ago. He came 17th and did pretty well, but I'm only good on old machines anyway.
He's ranked 7th.
He was. He's let it slip when he went to study in London.
I had no idea. You know what just shits me about pinball machines is when it just goes straight down, like there's nothing, straight through the bloody flaps, no matter what you do. Oh, God. Anyway.
It's life.
It is life, isn't it? Sometimes it slides through to the keeper.
And you got to put another $1 in it to get it going again.
God.
So, Scott, we're really fortunate, obviously, to get a bit of your time. Obviously, you're a very busy man. But we just wanted to learn more about Scott Hutchinson, the person, and the life that, you've been living. Because a lot of people, know Hutchinson Builders. Obviously, it's one of the biggest building companies in Australia. And I think you were recently the 6th largest privately owned company in Australia.
Yes.
Yeah, which is a huge feat.
Number 1 in Queensland, yes.
Unbelievable. So I suppose let's start close to the beginning. So you were a BBC boy?
Yes, I was. Indooroopilly State School, then BBC. Yeah, and I got pretty good marks. So I worked out early on what I wanted to do. It was pretty easy. I had 3 generations before me that went into the business. So I just said, Dad, I'll come in. And I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, you're getting good marks. Go and do engineering, which I hated.
And you didn't feel any pressure to come in?
No, there was no pressure to come in, but it was just such a logical choice.
Yeah.
I was interested in business, and I liked the forebearers. I liked my grandfather. I met my great-grandfather. Dad, I thought was great, so I just went into it.
Yeah, amazing.
What uni did you go to?
University of Queensland.
Yeah, right.
But in those days, it was very, very tough. You didn't pay to go to uni, so and not many people went, and they were quite happy to kick you out because it meant it kept it more exclusive, and it didn't affect the money. So I struggled with it, but I got through.
Yeah.
I had 4 years of doing something that was above my station and very difficult.
Struggled with the workload or the complexity of it, or
the workload, the other people in the year were very, very bright, and I was distracted a bit too. Yeah.
What were you distracted by?
Normal things.
Pinball,
fun, social, girls.
And were you working in the business at this stage while studying?
Yeah, I was. Each holiday I worked in the business.
Okay.
So often labouring. I did a 6-week stint driving the truck.
All right.
Which I loved. And and sometimes working in the office.
And at this stage, how big was Hutchies at that stage of the game?
Well, it had been very big in the 1920s and 1930s, and then we got into trouble in the 1960s, and my father actually wasn't going to go into it, but he had to go into it basically to rescue it. So he rescued it in 66 to 68, and then he shrunk it and ran it quite small from about 68 till the mid 80s.
So what did that look like? What size? Just to paint the picture, like what sort of projects were you undertaking at that stage, or was he?
We did a lot of refurbishment, highly labour intensive things.
Yeah.
A lot of work that other builders didn't want. Probably only turning over at the time of probably $6 to $10 million, but doing quite well in many years, and flat in others as construction is.
Yeah, right. So you must be able to drive around Brisbane these days and point out just about everything that that the family's been a part of.
We've just about worked on everything because we did such little refurbs and things as well. So there's lots of buildings that are still there. There's lots of old ones that have been knocked down that we've meticulously recorded, and there's lots that we've refurbished sometimes 3, 4, 5 times.
Yeah, there's probably buildings you've knocked down and then rebuilt. Like you built them originally, knocked them down and rebuilt them again.
Yes.
Has that happened?
Yes.
It would have been hard to knock down because you would have done such a good job building them.
Well, I'll leave that alone.
So you're at uni, and you said you had a bit of a tough time getting through that, but you came out the other side. And what was next?
I went and worked for a consulting engineer to get do my 3 years design experience, so I could get registered as a registered practicing engineer.
Okay.
So I did that, and at night I started the MBA, the Master of Business Administration, which I absolutely loved. I hated university for 4 years, and then I found I loved the business course.
Why do you think that was?
Oh, because it was real.
Yeah.
It was about money more than steel and concrete and things, and it was about people, very much. I did every human resource subject you could do. That's the theory I love, the theory about people.
Yeah, right. And so do you think that's translated into the culture that you try to foster at Hutchies these days?
Absolutely. Everything I've learnt there I've tried to put into it. Basically that's a culture of empowerment and trust and making mistakes and learning from your mistakes but not having to leave. And and it's been painful at times, but it has over the years been a successful formula.
And you were saying earlier, Scott, that you went overseas for 12 months?
Yeah, after I went with 2 mates and we lived in a combi for a year and drove around Europe and North Africa.
I want to know all about it.
What was the highlight of that trip? What was one of the...
Still, don't make him pick one. Was it one of these? Was it one of the? What are they with all the panels? How many panels are those classic old combis? You know what I'm talking about?
It was one of the. Yeah, it was one that popped.
All
it was
the
a
windows.
pop top.
Yeah.
1967. 1976. Red one. Yeah, we called it the Starship Enterprise. And
how long was your hair back then?
No, yeah, it did. I went the whole year without a haircut.
Did you?
Yeah, it was very short at the start and long at the end.
Bit shaggy.
Yeah,
nice.
It was good. It was that was the best year of my life.
Tell me, did you have any? I don't want to know about the best bits, but did you have any close calls, any scares while you were traveling?
Oh yeah. Morocco was frightening.
Yeah, really.
It probably still is today. You get into trouble.
How important do you think it is for people, for like young people, to get out and travel and have that life experience?
Well, the difference between then and now is the cost of an airfare then is exactly the same price return from London as it is now. So that means relatively it's so cheap to get there, and then it's quite expensive when you stay there. It was the opposite back then. It was very expensive to get there, but once you got there, it was quite cheap to live.
Yeah, right.
So what it fostered was people going away for 12 months and but now the kids seem to do it in 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah, just due to
the
price of staying there.
Yeah, the price of staying there, and that's the way they prefer to do it. Yeah, the world's a lot closer. You don't have to go and camp there for a year. I think it's better to do it the way we did it, but that's not what's happening. So that's not what's happening.
So you came back from 12 months of travelling around the world, and what was the next step?
I went back to university full time, which I loved. That was just to finish off the MBA.
Oh, so you checked out early and then came back.
Yeah, it was a 2-year full time course or 6-year part time. So I thought I'll knock it over full time.
Yeah,
and I loved it. Being back at uni at 25, 26, full time was good.
And during that time, were you thinking of ways you could implement stuff into the business?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every assignment I could do on the business, I was doing it on the business. Yeah.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I was all I was thinking about was the business, really.
Yeah. And then then 26, you went and started working full time.
Started full time just as contracts administrator, they'd call it today. I don't know what they called it back then, an assistant, I think. But Dad was including me in all the decisions, and working closely with Dad, it was really good times.
But I mean, daunting at 26 years of age.
Yeah, well, it was. I didn't have the responsibility. Dad was still a man, like very much so. He was only 53, 54, so it wasn't as if I was coming to take over. He had a lot of years left.
Okay, yeah, right, amazing. And what was the culture like? Were they very inviting for young Scott to come in?
Oh, the first thing I tell my own sons, the first thing anyone tells you when you come into an organisation like that is you're not as good as your father. But I said take no notice of that. So I got told that dozens of times before they'd even met me. But
how did you feel?
This just like a bit of a hazing.
Skin. Yeah, well, there's a bit of hazing. It didn't worry me. He was larger than life, and I just brushed that off. That didn't worry me at all.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. They probably that's an interesting thing, I suppose.
Yeah, Dad has a charm that and I'm not. This isn't false modesty. I just don't have. But he's So that was strange, but that didn't worry me. I knew what I was doing, and
maybe it skips a generation, does it? If your son's got it.
I don't know. No, I don't find them charming, but someone else may.
Oh, I mean, to be 7th in the world at pinball, there must be something going right there.
Yes. Actually, I was proud of that. It's the first elite athlete their family's ever had.
Oh, I just imagine he's got fingers the size of sausages.
It's a focus thing, pinball.
It's
it's in your head. So I always played it to get a replay. He played it to beat the opponent. So. That's a different thinking of pinball.
Different style.
Yeah.
And then in 91, we were sort of talking about before, you were 32 years of age, you've been in the business now for 6 years, and you were made managing director.
Managing director, yeah. Dad went to as chairman. I became managing director, and but he was still very much there, and I wanted him there. There was no. It wasn't my idea; it was his idea, and he got a consultant in, and we worked through it. But I wouldn't have. I needed him there. I wanted him there anyway.
Yeah, right.
Do you feel like you're pretty in the deep end kind of thing?
No, because we'd been acting like that anyway. We were sharing the ideas and the what'll we do here. So it didn't change day to day. So it didn't seem abnormal to me. Just the titles changed, and he stepped back a little bit. He got more into. He's a country and western music fanatic at motorbikes.
Both kinds of music, country and western.
He's motorbikes and boats and that sort of stuff, especially motorbikes. He started to get riding the motorbikes.
Yeah, and you don't have that so much?
No, and rowing. He's a rowing fanatic.
Oh yeah, that was who someone said that this week.
He's
that
still rowing now, isn't he?
Yeah, he got an award. He still rows 8 kilometres in the head of the Yarra and things like that. It's amazing. He's 85.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's in your head as well. I don't know if you rode, lads, but
cricket
you
man.
die. Yeah, you die in those races. They're terrible. I did it at school and learnt.
Very taxing. Yeah. Well, I suppose what is a normal day of operations for you? You know, in your role. What? And, I suppose back in
Now?
that day. No, when you were 32, when you first took over, what did that look like? Because I mean, for Dan and I mean, we've only got this tiny little infant business, and we seem to be running around like headless
There's
chooks.
not
all
enough
day.
hours in the day.
So
It's about looking at what jobs are coming in. For us, it was good. The jobs came to us, picking the ones we were going to go after, working out, discussing who's going to put the time and in estimating them, and if we win them, who's going to look after them internally if we win them, and have we matched them up with the right size jobs, the client, the internal resources. So that was what mainly I was doing. Yeah.
okay, so you were sort of at the coalface winning the jobs and working with clients that way, or were you sort of waiting for them to come through over your desk? You were sort of... Well,
I was out there marketing as well, but it was a pretty easy thing to market. When I came in, we developed that symbol you see now, and business cards and things which were quite revolutionary in those days. And so we did. Look, we did have a higher presence. We're still doing the same number of jobs. It was just much more obvious. But that's really very much what our managing director does today. Looking at what jobs are coming in, make sure he picks the ones that we think we've got the best chance of, and then matches them up to the people who are best to do those jobs.
When you say you were out there marketing it, what did that look like back then? Because I mean, when I say back then, it's not that long ago.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
Well, yeah. Obviously not using Instagram.
Well, no, it wasn't. Before 92, it was lunch, very much on a Friday afternoon, the lunches and meeting people. And then when Paul Keating brought in, I think, was that tax on fringe benefits, and things got tougher. It went to coffee. I've never drunk coffee before, and it's been an addiction now. Yes, yeah. I was going home jittery. And
just plug it into my veins.
And so, it went from lunch to coffee, and people were much shorter of time then because it was a tougher time in the property industry anyway. So it was meeting people, saying why Hutchies should get the job, getting on tender lists.
But I mean, I would imagine that it would have been very much like, well, you know, we've done this job. Like, look at this is what we've done. You know, do you want us or not? Like,
yes, but that still needs to be
that
message needs to be conveyed, whether it's in a document, in a book or a presentation you put together, or whether it's having a cup of coffee or lunch and saying, hey, look, your job's this. We've done this and this and this.
Yeah.
So, and you've got competition, so that may have done similar things as well.
So in 91, you said before there was some tough jobs that you'd inherited, and there was a bit of a downturn.
Well, it's a hard concept to grasp, but builders do worse when their turnover increases rapidly, and we got a spike in 91, so we had a few tough jobs, tough clients. And so I had to work through that. That was hard.
How did you manage that?
You just got up in the morning and did what you could. Yeah. And you look outside the organisation for better advice. We're never too proud to do that.
I think that's a massive point. That's a huge point.
Asking for help.
Yes, asking for help. I didn't ask for personal help so much as advice on what to do in this situation. And our construction manager at the time got some outside help in, which changed the place as well. So it's always been a place where people can go and get external help without having to go up through the line to get permission to do it. Just go and get what you need.
When you said that builders, when their revenue increases, they struggle substantially. What do you mean by that?
Well, what happens is you get a lot of work at once. Your people are stretched, your subcontractors are stretched, and as your subcontractors and the suppliers are stretched, their prices increase as well as their inefficiency goes down. So you've got pressure on all fronts. So at the start of a turnover increase, it looks wonderful, and then the reality starts to bite. And that happens every 5 years usually.
Yeah, right. And that's something you've seen consistently throughout your time in business.
Yes.
So is it something, if it starts to become a cycle almost in 5-year periods, is it something you can start to sort of...
We try.
Haven't cracked the code yet?
No.
Yeah, right.
No, we haven't.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's still a cycle we go through.
Yeah, okay.
And it's hard to reject wonderful jobs, even if you're at capacity. It's builders want to build.
You want to say yes to it, yeah. I mean, it's if you say no to a job, or if you think you're going to miss out on one, well, it's like, well, what.
And a lot of the jobs you've been working, helping the client design it and budget it for 12 months. So then at the end of it to say, look, no, we can't do your work is a very hard thing to do.
So you guys do all that pre-build, preparation, all the planning, absolutely
early
everything.
Contractor engagement, yes. Yep. And that's mainly what we do now, and that's really, really what we're good at.
And so that's like consultancy.
No, it's getting on, bringing a contractor in early to make sure the client is getting the design that they want and the budget that they want, working with the consultants, usually with the client's consultants. And everybody working together to make sure it comes together. And that's much more common than the tender process now, because the tender process was causing hiccups and things at the end. When the tenders came in, they were all over budget.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's Rob Gray from Gray Construction said a similar thing about being engaged with the client from the get-go, from the inception of the idea of the build, because, I think so many builders out there, at least from our experience, small-scale builders, residential, come in once plans are all sort of certified, everything's good to go, and you're kind of on the back foot, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of builders can't do the earlier contracting thing, though. They need to just be told what to do. But we've had to get good at it. It's just the situation, design and construct.
Yeah, amazing. And in 32, when you were in 91, when you were 32, you got married that year as well. So you took over and you were married.
Yes, I did.
And how was it managing your new job and your new wife and just making sure that all that was working?
Then we had a baby 11 months after that. So it wasn't. It's a time you just tend to handle when you're young, but it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be coming at you at once, but you juggle things.
I bet the pinball machine got a bloody good workout then, eh?
Yes. Yes, it did. And you drink and you watch TV late into the night. And my wife's a corporate person, so she knew about it. Her father's an industry figure, so she knew how to handle it.
Yeah, right.
You knew what she was getting into.
Yeah, she knew what she was getting into, and did very well while I was falling asleep on the couch.
So, fast forward to today. Now you're not the managing director anymore. You're the chairman.
No, I'm the chairman.
Yeah. So you've sort of stepped back, I suppose, to a degree.
Yes. Well, in 2002. My dad said there's a guy, or 2001, my dad said there's a guy at the Master Builders that he reckoned could run BHP. And I said, well, look, let's give him a go. I've had 10 years of this, and it's hard work. And I was still doing 12-hour days and 6 days. He came in and everybody predicted fireworks because they didn't think I'd let go. I could tell within 3 weeks he had 10 times the capacity that I had, and I had no trouble letting go. We've been working together now since 2002. What's that, 17, 18 years.
So who's that?
Greg Quinn.
Greg Quinn, yeah, right.
Yeah. I've never seen anybody like that.
Yeah, right.
It's, yeah.
Oh, what's his background?
He's a carpenter, of course. Yeah, that's,
What do they say about carpenters?
it's when I first walked onto a building site, I noticed one trade lording over the others, and I didn't have a trade, so I was unbiased. But the carpenters walk around, and I'm sure it's something to do with Jesus. I'm sure you guys think you can walk on water because of Jesus. I don't know why, but you
Carpenters, mate, top of the crop. Top of the crop.
Well, all those leading hands tend to be carpenters. The site managers tend to be carpenters, and they rise up through the ranks. I have no explanation.
Well, I mean, you're there from, you got to be across everything, I think, as a chippy, right? You're there from the start of the job to the finish of the job, and,
You're a chippy.
Yeah.
You should declare that.
Yeah, I am a chippy. But
so are you.
Yeah, so am I.
But you've got to understand what the sparkies have got to do, and you've got to understand what the plumbers have got to do, and you've got to understand the tilers, and absolutely, the plaster, absolutely everything. And the downside of that is you've also got to deal with the shit that they create as well, when there's, you're always the one who's got to fix something. So I think just naturally you start to...
I rest my case.
Yeah.
He just
put the nail in his own coffin.
He just explained.
Yeah. Excuse me, while I go out and walk on water over here, please.
So,
he just explained the superiority complex you all have.
I'm in the rag trade now. I'm a seamstress these days.
So that's such a massive step, not just for the company, but also you as a person to alleviate your position, I suppose, in 2002. Like that's a massive thing to do.
Well, see, everybody thought that, but my ego's tied up with the organisation. Who's running it and who gets credit for that is not a problem for me, and it never has been. It was easy for me to hand responsibility to Greg. It was wonderful, actually. It's been really good. I can't ever remember us arguing.
Jeez, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Dan and I have one of those probably every 2 days.
Oh, Barney, nothing wrong with that.
I mean, we probably disagree on things and we talk through it, but it's never turns into an argument. And he's usually right, so it's me seeing the light usually.
So I guess that in that situation, there's someone that you've identified who's just better suited for that role.
I didn't even identify him. My father did.
Yeah, right.
But I was humble enough to get out of the way, and it was easy.
Yeah,
I could see the capacity he had, and he's one of these people that can get into the micro, the detail, but also have a view on the big picture as well. And there's very, very few people that can do that.
Yeah, wow.
But I mean, when your father said, this bloke could run BHP, like, what sort of, person is he? Like, is he just very charismatic, or is he just such a hard worker, or is he across so much stuff? Like,
he's a hard worker. He's disciplined. He's straight up.
Obviously driven and passionate for what he does as well.
He's played rugby league for Queensland.
Yeah, right.
Just before State of Origin. It wasn't a hard decision.
Amazing.
Yeah, he still runs the place, and I go and do these sort of things.
So I wonder if there's probably wouldn't be too many chippies out there who reckon they can go from swinging a hammer to being the MD of a company like Hutchies.
Yeah, he may have done a course as well.
Yeah.
Actually, I've never.
I don't even know.
I don't know.
Are you qualified for this job?
Well, we test things by running them, and
of course.
And in 3 weeks I said, "Oh, Dad, this is
right.
the go."
So how does going from managing director to chairman? What does that look like?
It's a massive difference. You're not selecting people to go on to matching teams with jobs, and that's the biggest thing. And you're not deciding which ones to do. And instead, I've got a much more ceremonial role, still the marketing, work closely with the comms team, working on culture,
Yep.
taking people out. I try and take every office to a music festival during the year, which is hardly hard work.
Yeah, it'd be pretty easy.
What music festivals? What's your favourite?
Ever. Like I go to a dozen a year or more. Burning Man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I've gone 10 times.
Have you?
Unbelievable.
What do you get a weird get up on? Do you dress up in some bloody...
mate. Look, it's all on Facebook. We've got an art car that is in the shape of a steam iron. So when we're driving it around, it looks a giant steam iron. It looks like we're ironing the desert. That sort of silliness.
Shut up.
That is awesome.
What other festivals? What are some of your favourites?
I've been doing them since. Livid was great in Brisbane, then Glastonbury, Fuji Festival in Japan, Exit Festival in Serbia. I've
heard Exit Festival is actually my brother has got
in a
hell of a story from Exit Festival. Yeah. Not for this podcast, but I've heard.
FIB's a beauty. 4 days on the beach. It's in Valencia near Spain. Exit Festival is in an old castle, which is marvellous. People going through tunnels to get to different venues, and as they go through, they scream their heads off.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about locally in Australia?
I go to Splendour every year with my wife.
Yeah.
And
you camp there?
Yeah. Well, now because we're involved in the industry, I get a caravan.
Yeah, righto.
So that's good.
Awesome.
It's still camping, I suppose.
Yeah.
Groove in the Moo.
Righto.
Laneways.
Yeah,
I
nice.
go to those.
Nice.
Follow Iggy Pop around if ever he comes. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's sort of your hobby and your release away from work is music and festivals. How important is that, that split away to get away from work and just drop tools?
Well, I don't usually use it to get out. I usually bring work with me. I bring the guys, either clients or Hutchies people to the festival. Which doesn't worry me at all. I'm just as happy to be with those people.
I'm going to chuck on a Hutchies shirt. I think we might have one or two spares out there. I'm just making myself a part of it.
I suppose one thing we haven't spoken about is sort of what were some of the biggest things you've learnt in your days at Hutchies, or like mistakes that you've made, things that have gone wrong? Because I suppose obviously it's not always rainbows and butterflies.
No, it's not, and it's constant mistakes. You try and learn from them. You try and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's the other thing. You've got to let everybody make mistakes and learn from them as well. It can't just be you. And we've even made that mistake. After a bad mistake, we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater, but we tend not to. Learn and get up and give it another go.
Yeah, because I suppose there's so many, we've had small residential builders on here that, because they've only got a couple of jobs on, and if one job goes bad, then it can be, quite a daunting and hard process to financially and stress to get back up and out of that. I suppose when you guys are at such a mass scale, I mean, how many jobs would you guys have on at the moment?
We've got about 225, yeah.
That's just about.
Well, some are finishing today and some are starting today,
Yeah,
so you don't
wow.
know. So, and a lot of them are small. We still do small work, but we've lost massive amounts of jobs, money on different jobs, and you've just got to suck it up.
Wear it.
Yeah. There's nothing you can do. You can't beat yourself up about it. If you're in the industry, you're dealing in big numbers and you're going to lose and make big numbers.
Yeah.
So you better get used to it.
Yeah, I suppose that's, like a really important point. It's not as though you guys have a secret formula for success every time.
We certainly don't.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
I can't fathom 225 jobs at one. How big's the team? How big is the team?
1,850.
Oh,
but there's 14,000 people come to work every day on a Hutchies site.
So subbies. And
say 14,000.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so we're all across Australia except WA.
So at what point did it go from just a Queensland-based construction company to
when our managing director came in.
Quinny.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So he just sort of took the reins there and just
No, he didn't. We didn't have any. We still don't have any profit targets, turnover targets, or geographical targets. We just try and do good jobs and see what happens. But we had a client drag us down to Sydney, and that opportunity came up, and Greg had the confidence to do it. And then we had another client drag us down to Melbourne, and then we started in Hobart. So it sort of went organically. We didn't have a strategic plan. We're much more of an opportunistic company rather than strategic.
which is good. I think you're not limiting yourself, in any way at all, and you're kind of staying nice and nimble, and you can kind of move around and go where the work takes you, I suppose. Are you over in the West?
No, we're not. No. We had to go over there. We lost a lot of money. And
What is it with the West?
I don't know. I don't know, but we weren't. We've still got a 7,000 square metre shed over there that we rent out.
So, yeah.
We were going to work from. We went over there at the request of the mining companies when the mining boom was on, and everyone predicted it to go for 10 years, and it didn't. It just collapsed. It's come back up now.
Yep.
But it just went bang and stopped.
And so that's a lot. So you've done a lot of work around mining camps and
we have
infrastructure around mines and all that sort of stuff, have you?
We've got 2 factories that do modular buildings for those sort of clients.
Yeah, wow.
One in Toowoomba and one in Yatala.
Yeah, righto. And have you got offices set up interstate like Sydney, Melbourne?
We do.
You do?
Yeah. We've got 18 offices.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot in Queensland, but also a couple in New South Wales, a couple in Victoria, Northern Territory, Adelaide, Hobart.
I guess when you're setting up offices like interstate like that, building like have you got you're shipping some of your trusted team down from Queensland to run these offices, or
you mix it up.
Yeah,
you mix it up. You mix a couple of people or groups in with local people down there, and you see it come together.
Yeah, and that process in itself must be bloody challenging, right?
It is challenging. Yeah, there's a tyranny of distance. Yes, but we try in all our work. We try and decentralise things as much as we can, decentralised decision making. So we try and push the power out and down. The only things that the only time we centralise things is when they have to be centralised, like IT and accounting and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So with you got 1,850 staff, you were saying, like full-time staff, that's unbelievable. How do you go about creating a culture in Hutchies, and with you being Australia-wide now? Like, how do you go about creating a strong culture at
Take
Hutchies?
them to music festivals. Things like that. I mean, they hear about the culture and
something they want to be a part
of. Yeah. So, and if you expand too quickly, your culture dilutes. There's new people come on that don't understand it. Trying to slow the expansion is the hardest thing a building company has to do.
Which is unbelievable, really.
Yeah,
isn't it?
it doesn't make it. It's hard. It's hard for journalists, especially, to understand that.
When you say it's hard for journalists to understand that, what have you had some blowback? Like, what do you
Oh no, I love talking to the journalists.
Yeah.
But you explain that situation, and not just journalists. It's so counterintuitive to people that your turnover goes up and your profit goes down, that they get it while you're explaining it to them, and then it gets lost in 5 minutes later.
I suppose unless you're in it, unless you've been in it and you've actually experienced it, and you can see what everything will. Yeah, it's going to be hard to sort of wrap your head around, isn't it?
A lot of people in it don't understand it, but things get stretched.
So how does that? That must be a mind fuck in itself.
It is
for people who are in it to try to be grasping what is exactly going on here.
It's not just that. It's having to say, we're not going to do this extra work because it's going to stretch things. It's a very hard thing to do. Very hard, especially if you've been working on it for a long time.
Yeah, right.
And how do you?
And we don't do it. We take the jobs on and
Your 5-year cycle comes
yeah,
around
yeah,
again.
yeah. That's what happens.
Well, how do you, as a company, work on making sure that the younger blokes that are coming through and becoming project managers and stuff like that don't, know how to manage the stress and know how to manage, those things? Is there, or do you just sort of let them learn it and just say we're here if you need more help? Or
we have a lot of training and we have a culture that gathers around people, and we work in small teams.
Yep.
So, and I think the thing that people find most stressful, and there's research to back this up, is when they feel they don't have control of their own destiny, and that's pretty much what we try and do. We try and give people control over what they're doing and a say in what they're doing, and that feeling of empowerment helps them. Sure, they'll often take that feeling of empowerment, take on too much responsibility, and then get stressed. Then you've got to help them. But I don't think that's as bad as the stress that comes from having no impact on your life.
yeah. Well,
Does that make sense?
That
Yeah,
does
no,
make sense, as in giving them more for them to understand rather than them be scrambling to saying what is going on around here.
Or working in a bubble that they don't feel they're making a difference or have any effect on
The
what they're
empowerment
doing.
side's massive.
Yeah.
So for you to identify that, like as an organisation, is that something that it's just through the generations you've sort of come to understand, or is that something that?
No, I learned it at the MBA.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So is
I
that
learned that at university.
Yeah, right. So
Yeah,
you've actually
wow.
been taught that it's not
Yes.
so you haven't brought in external, consultants
No.
to be like, we need to create this
No.
culture. You need to.
No, I did every human resource subject I possibly could, and that was a recurring theme, that give people control.
So is that would you say that is your contribution to to this empire? Is that, is that what one of your biggest contributions has been? When I say empire, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use the word empire.
Yeah.
But, that's my contribution.
Yeah.
I'm the Minister for Culture, if you like.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
that's the culture of having two sides, the music thing as well as the that's what I try and get empowerment, and when teams are getting too big, splitting up into other teams so that they now control their destiny.
And so I guess how important do you reckon it is? Obviously, that's just where your strength lies and your natural interest, in human resources and culture and all that sort of stuff. How important do you think it is to identify that at a stage and just play to your strengths rather than, obviously you've got Quinny in there because his strength is running, jobs or being the managing director, but, you are that culture guy.
That's a really good question. If I can put it another way, usually the people in power or the starter of the business or the owner of the business has real trouble handing that responsibility over, and I feel it's not just a fear thing. It's an ego thing, and I've just never had that. I can't understand why I wouldn't hand it over to somebody that's clearly better. It doesn't worry me, and my name's on the sign. But you know what I mean?
But
if
do you
he's
reckon
better, he's going to do a better job. Just let him do it.
Yeah, I know, but we've worked at this. Yeah, but the ironic thing is that
Most
people
people
that
don't.
people we've worked with that are like a small little residential builder, they won't even allow the little team that we were working for us any responsibility because they were too proud to alleviate any. It's amazing that someone of your stature is able to do that on such a large scale.
That's something I didn't need to be taught at uni. I just never had that sort of ego. I've got an ego, but it's not twisted like that.
But I guess
it's amazing.
You're intuitive, and you understand that,
Well, how obvious was what I just said? If your name's on the sign,
what does the rest of it matter?
who cares if you're taking who's doing it all?
But
if that's your buzz, Ronald Reagan's one of his favourite sayings. Not that I quote him often, but he said there's no limit to what a man can do if he doesn't mind who gets the credit for it, and that's so much effort goes into getting the credit.
So
it's a waste of time getting the credit.
Just get
when your name's
It's so true. I mean, it's brilliant.
But do you reckon that goes back to I guess this idea of masculinity, or this kind of old school sort of approach to leadership and being the top dog and all that sort of stuff?
I don't know, because it's not in me to think like that, and just as I'm explaining it to you, you're seeing that it's logical. So I think you're probably best to ask somebody who
somebody who's caught up in it.
Who's caught up
but
in
then
credit.
you get the opposite though, then, because you just get the that sort of clouded perception and view that there is no other way, and and I've got to be the buck stops with me, and if I relinquish any control, well then who knows what might happen.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's a different fear, but in a lot of big organisations, a big chunk of your day goes into internal strategizing, which is just such a waste of time. It's just terrible, and I try to eliminate that. I probably believe I've done that more than I have. There's probably more politics than I think, but I do try and stop the stupidity of people competing with each other internally or strategizing internally.
Yeah. Well, what's the next step for Scott Hutchinson? Like, what's the future look like for you personally?
My son's just come back from London Business School. We've got a problem job in Melbourne, so I've sent him down to work on that. So, so he learns what a job's like. He's a quantity surveyor, and he's done an MBA in London. So he's sort of combined the combi trip with the uni thing over there. And so I'm planning to hand over more responsibility, my sort of responsibility to him. Greg's my age, so I'd love another 20 years out of him, but I'm realistic. So that's something that's going to happen. We've got a succession plan there as well. So over the next 5 years, I suppose that's going to happen. I'd like to go to more music festivals, and I'd like to take Hutchies people to them.
Yeah, right. And your son, did he always want to come into the business as well?
No, he didn't. He told it at 18. He saw an alternative life and told me to shove it. And then 9 months later, came back and said, I want back in, and I told him to shove it. And then we sort of worked something out, and he went back to uni. Oh, that's right. He had to do 10 weeks living and working in our factory in Yatala in the middle of summer, and he lived on site in a site shed and made modular buildings every day. And he did that and went back to uni and said he's on track now.
So was that you saying, if you can do this, if you go down and do this, well then I'll reconsider?
Yeah, and it was kids don't want their license these days as well. I understand why, because it's not as important. I said he had to spend 10 weeks down at Yatala and learn how to drive. He could drive a ute round all night because it's on private property.
Yeah, and
he had to get his license at the end of it. So. Yeah, he had to do and never leave sight. So it's not. It wouldn't have been a pleasant 10 weeks, but he reckoned he loved it.
So he's showing that he wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I had Plan B.
Yeah, right.
But he's come back keen as mustard.
And you said that you've got a succession plan in place. Is that a difficult process for a company this size and for the family?
No.
Or is it just a process?
No. Well, there's two. There's the succession plan of ownership, and we've got a history of just grabbing one child and making it theirs and sorting the others out. But that sees that it doesn't dilute into cousins and aunties and people having different ideas. And then there's the managerial succession, which is what follows Greg. and my father's obsessed with succession and has been for 10 or 15 years. So he's been driving that, and he's been making us report about who's going to, if we get hit by a truck tomorrow, who's going to go into it. And he makes every board member think like that.
Yeah, right. And so with Greg, obviously Greg's been instrumental in this past 20 sort of year period.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, but how do you, like, it's almost like he needs a little apprentice or something. Like,
that's been happening.
Yeah.
But we're replacing him with 2 people when he goes. And hopefully that won't be for 5 years minimum, hopefully.
Isn't that what anyone wants, isn't it? When to be replaced by 2 people. Yeah, that is what anyone wants, yeah. He'll be telling that story.
And a lovely piece of Hutchies culture is not many people were putting up their hand. It's something we had to go and talk to different people, would they do?
Yeah, right.
Whereas in a normal
people will be knocking on the
place,
door.
people will be stabbing each other in the back to get the position.
Yeah.
Money and power, and but it wasn't like that. It was like, okay, who here would like to do this?
Well, that's a credit to, I mean, you and the rest of the board, I suppose, for creating that culture. I mean, that's because, like you said, most other places could easily get pretty toxic, seeing an opportunity like that and people trying to, stomp on top of each other to get to that,
that's normal.
Position.
That's what normally would happen.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you see that in politics daily.
Yes. Well, that's a special case. Yeah. They're in it for them. Many of them are.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So outside of I guess one of the common things that we've kept going back to in this conversation is your love for music and your love for music festivals and all that sort of stuff. And we've just had the completion of the Fortitude Musical, which is I think it's the only medium-sized venue in Brisbane.
I didn't have great vision there. We lost Festival Hall in 2003, which was just a tragedy for Brisbane. It meant that everything had to go to the outskirts, and there was no music life for larger bands in the middle of Brisbane. And so this replaced that. And look, I realised what it was going to take. I went along to perhaps buy Festival Hall to run it as a hall, and we worked out to be worth about $6 million. And the Festival Hall went for $14 million. And then I realised residential values for land, based on residential values, it's probably 2 or 3 times what music can afford. So if you're going to replace a music venue, you're going to lose money. You're going to take a hit on the property. And so I prepared myself for that, waited until we had the resources, and then made a move.
Well, I absolutely love the thinking behind it, because music culture is just the best, and it's I mean, you look at Melbourne and Sydney, I guess, where it's they've really got it going really well, and Brisbane's kind of and you've got River Stage, I suppose, which is nice. It's an awesome venue, but what is it, 10,000 I think capacity? And
it needs upgrading too. That's our next
project.
Well, we'd like it to be. It's awesome, but it needs some things. It needs some cover to the mosh pit and some side.
Yeah.
We've got some ideas.
Do you?
Yeah.
Right. When can we expect?
But you can't. You can't make it lose its open air feel as well. So that's the challenge.
Yeah, well, that's one of the best things. I think it's probably my favourite open air venue.
Did you see the Prodigy there?
I didn't see the Prodigy there, but my God.
Yeah, that was.
And then, of course, there's my favourite venue in Brisbane, which is the Triffid.
Yeah,
I absolutely love going to the Triffid to watch music.
The Triffid's probably the best venue. Well, many people say the best venue in Australia. The acoustics are, and but it's got a cap of 1,000 people, so you're not going to have New Order play there or Grinspoon even. You can't get the big bands there, so you've got to go to a bigger space.
Mate, it's it's really cool. I'm thoroughly impressed by that aspect. And what about the bees? You've got the bees at Hutchies, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about the
me.
bees.
That was me. I just heard about urban bees, and it was just such a good story. I mean, bees say cooperative hard work. Birds and bees means Netflix and chill. It's just got the whole thing. And then you get this product at the end. And then there's documentaries on TV saying if we don't protect the bees, we're all going to die. And we've got roof space all over the country where we can do it. And everyone just talk to it. And so especially Cairns and Townsville, they produce gallons. They ship it down in trucks. So it's a really good story, a really good thing that people enjoy, and they enjoy the honey.
And that Subaru was just there, right? At Toowong?
Yeah, we bought Subaru, yeah.
Oh, righto. So, because my housemate got his car serviced down there the other day. He's got a Subaru Outback. And on his passenger seat when it was done was a little vial of honey. With the Subaru label on it. Now, I don't know if it's got anything to do with...
I don't know.
Is that a bit of cross-promotion?
I have no idea.
Sorry, I should explain to your listeners. A Subaru are next door.
Yeah.
And we have a good relationship with them, and we've bought that site and they rent it off us now, and then we're going to expand there if we need to in the future. They may be stealing our honey, but I very much doubt.
Have we got a scoop? This is another scoop.
Yogi Bear.
I don't think AP eggers get into stealing honey. I don't think that happens. I'd say people have got our idea. At any function we sponsor, we always leave a bottle of our cheesy heart-shaped honey.
Yeah.
On the table, and it's always gone. Often they'll leave other presents there, like pens and things, but this always goes.
And
bottles.
Does that all come from the roof there at Toowong?
No. Cairns, Townsville produce most of it.
So you've got setups up there?
Oh, we've got setups 18 sites around Australia.
Wow.
Yeah,
right.
No. On all our offices, we have beehives.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, tomorrow we're taking delivery of a specially designed native bee, stingless bee one. So we're doing an indigenous bee hive at Toowong tomorrow.
You're kidding me. That's so great. Do you know what sort of bees you've got at Toowong there?
No, man. We've got proper, is it avarists?
Not sure.
Raiding them.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Looking after bees. There's a lot more to bees than just raiding the honey.
Yeah. Because I'm riding my gardening at the moment, and I've got about 19 tomato plants at home. I was out there on Sunday morning. I know I live at Toowong there up on Birdwood Terrace, and I was just talking to my housemate. I was like, fuck me, there's no bees around here. I really need some bees. Out of nowhere, this blue-banded native just came swinging around and started having its way with my tomato flowers. And I thought, I bet you this is a Hutchies bee.
Well, it's branded. It's got the blue ring on it. It's a branded Hutchinson bee.
Blue banded, yeah, bee.
This is a bit sick, but I think most of the pollen from the honey at Toowong comes from bees getting it from flowers on the graves at Toowong Cemetery.
Well, they'd be
circle of life. Circle of life.
They'd be very fertile flowers, that's for sure.
The honey doesn't taste bad, so
yeah, right. So you're a bit of an environmentalist.
Oh, mate, we all do what we can.
Yeah,
I drive an electric car,
right.
and we put we've got solar on all our buildings and things, but
electric cars, so no one can hear you coming.
But I go overseas a lot and burn a lot of jet fuel, I suppose. So I do what I can, and I think if everybody does what they can, it helps.
Yeah,
the electric cars is good.
Yeah, cool. Oh, I love it.
Well, I mean, it's been a bloody unbelievable chat, Scott. I mean, thanks so much for your time. I know our listeners are going to be, really blown away with, your story and how you don't sort of seem to have an ego, and it's you're just an everyday knock-around bloke.
I can't believe he's taking us to Burning Man next
year. in the iron, in the floating iron.
If anyone's at Burning Man and they see the iron, flag it down. Say, hey, Hutchies.
Flag it down, and you'll get a bit of taster of some honey.
Well, but that's what people do. They flag down and say, hey, some such and such on board. No, but get on board. We just pick people up and drop them. That's all we do every day. Just ride around in this thing. It's fantastic.
So awesome. I mean, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Really appreciate it. And, hopefully we can keep the Trademutt shirts coming into the Hutchies men. Keep the conversations going.
Yeah, thanks, lads, for what you do. This is a really, really good idea.
Thanks.
Suicide on construction sites is ridiculously high. So, yeah, somebody has to do something.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We really appreciate it, and we really appreciate the support of a company like Hutchies, because I mean, what we're trying to do is sort of come at it from. There's no point throwing more crisis support services at people. It's a cultural thing that we need to change, and that's far earlier on in the piece, and it takes open conversations like this one, just chewing the fat, just no egos, no nothing, just talking. Taking
yourself less seriously, I think.
Oh, mate,
Send them all to Burning Man.
That's
sold me.
We can put a cut there because that's a segment. Good on you, Scott. Thanks so much, mate.
Thanks, fellas.
Cheers. Good on you.
Thank you.